I had a caseload of 26 kids in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. My hours were supervised by an LPC. I had to work 1,500 counseling hours to take the state exam. And I had a caseload of 26 kids. A lot of people don't remember the first wave of adulterated heroin that went through Philly and Camden. We lost 28 people in 13 days. 4 of those 28 people were on my caseload. I lost an 18-year-old girl, a 19-year-old boy, a 22-year-old girl, a 23-year-old boy, and I walked away from counseling. I decided I was going to leave my full-time job, and I was going to, instead of counsel kids, because I'm not built for counseling, I'm really not, I get too close to people, I was going to do something in a big way. I was running a nonprofit organization called Steered Straight. I got out of prison and I started a program in the state prisons in New Jersey called Project Pride, personal responsibility and drug education, where inmates go out and tell their stories. And it's still in existence today. It's one of the largest outreach programs in the country, but I knew that we can't scare kids, and inmates going into urban communities in New Jersey, there's no shock and awe, trust me. 95% of the kids raise their hand when you ask them if they have an immediate family member in prison. And when you go out to the suburbs and you talk about this, well, we have a disease in suburban and rural America called "it can't happen to meism." That'll never happen to me. And when I got out of prison, I called some principals and superintendents and said, "Hey, I just got out of prison. I want to come talk to your kids." Hello? Hello? They didn't want to let me in their schools to talk to kids. What's the next con going to talk to our kids about? And I still get a little bit of that from people who don't think an ex-con should be talking to kids. I'm the one should be talking to kids. And not just talking to them, I want to teach them. I don't want to tell a story, I want to teach a story. So I decided that I was going to go make a film about the kids that I lost. So I decided to take my camera equipment down into Camden and North Philadelphia and find the drug dealers who sold my kids their fentanyl-laced heroin. And after my wife checked our life insurance policy, that's exactly what I did. And I spent 11 months on the streets of Camden. I interviewed 137 kids hooked on heroin. Not one of those kids was from Camden, not one. We had yet to have a public conversation on opiates and heroin in New Jersey. We'd yet to take the problem seriously, even though the problem was 12 years at that time in the making. I made a 45-minute documentary called "Kids Are Dying." I have them back there. "Kids Are Dying" showed the story of prescription opiate pain medication to heroin for honor roll students, valedictorians, salutatorians, college kids, suburban kids, 80% Caucasian from middle class and upper middle class families. And I submitted it to film festivals, won like 50 film festivals. I took it to A&E, and they were very interested, but as I shared when I got up, they said, "It shows New Jersey's problem. We want to see a national perspective. Nobody cares about New Jersey." That's what the director said, the producer said. So I traveled the country. I went to 40 states. I interviewed 500 parents who lost their children to addiction. 500 people I interviewed in 13 months who lost their kids to heroin and methamphetamine and polydrug overdoses. And I made a movie called "An American Epidemic." And then I found myself in Boulder, Colorado, with a woman whose daughter died the night before she walked at the University of Colorado at Boulder. She celebrated her graduation with a line of heroin, and her mother woke up to find her daughter hadn't, the day of graduation. And I was clearing my head in downtown Boulder, and I came across one of these big green crosses and stumbled on a marijuana dispensary. I said, "Wow, I heard about all those dispensaries. I got to go check this out." So I went inside and I walked into the Nordstrom of head shops. And I said, "I have to do a movie about this," and I just released my 3rd documentary called "Marijuana X." And trust me when I tell you, this problem is about to get a whole lot worse. We haven't even seen the peak. I'm telling you, we won't see OD death numbers until 2020. CDC agrees with me. But marijuana legalization is the Trojan horse that's going to implode America. And I guarantee you there's many people in this room. Many people in this room. I just had an argument the other day at a town hall event. A mother came up and said, "Well, my son's on marijuana maintenance, and at least he's not on heroin." And we had a conversation, and I found out that the first drug he ever was on was marijuana. So he's going to go back and maintain himself on the first drug that led to his heroin addiction in the first place. And she really had no idea that cannabinoid receptors and opiate receptors are very, very interrelated. Marijuana legalization is the Trojan horse that will implode America. And I'm telling you right now, it's not marijuana. This problem is about to get worse. I'm part of the solution, but I'm one person. I am all in. I have 4 more movies in some level of post-production right now. I just signed a big deal with Drug Free World. They gave me $1.5 million in booklets to hand out. I have a whole bunch of booklets on drugs back there. I'm trying to get them in the hands of every kid in America. I've mastered this program for 9 years, and I have 2 PhDs that help me craft an 8-module educational program, because I call superintendents and principals, as I did in Delaware, and I get told we don't have a drug problem. Our kids don't do drugs. We have good kids. We have good kids. Man, that is some district right there. I don't care what you're doing, what a school district is doing, it's not enough. It's not enough. And we're gonna lose 100,000 Americans this year to addiction, and I wanna stop it. So there's a recovery army. I decided to start a recovery army. People say, as Tim said, the war on drugs was an abysmal failure. It's because it wasn't a war on drugs, it was a war on drug addicts. So we need a new war, and we need a war on addiction, and we need a new army, a recovery army. So I went and took every penny I had left, and I bought a 35-foot RV motorhome. It's outside. I live in that in Walmart parking lots all over the country, and I try to go into every school, every college, every treatment center, every state and federal prison, every county jail, every time I can speak, every church. I have a fantastic school-based prevention and education program, second to none, and I'm trying to get it into every school in America, because if we don't stop the pipeline of feeding our addicted population in America, we'll never see the end of this. Vaping, tobacco, nicotine, alcohol, marijuana, I call it the trifecta gateway. And it's leading kids into addiction, changing the processes and the neurotransmitter of the brain. And then when you put prescription medication in it, and not just opiates, this past year, we prescribed more benzodiazepines than any year in our country's history, more stimulants than any year in our country's history, more anti-anxiety medication, more antidepressant medication than any year in our country's history. Pharma, I just spent the morning preparing my testimony for the Heroin Opiate Task Force for the U.S. Congress this morning in Washington, D.C., and he reminded me that there's 16 pharmaceutical lobbyists for every one member of Congress. So that means for the 535 men and women we send to Washington, they're up against 16-to-1 ratio of pharmaceutical lobbyists. If we don't come together, we don't band together, we're doomed. If we don't come and start speaking with one voice, because let me tell you who's walking in unison with that one voice: the insurance industry, the medical community, the treatment industry, and the pharmaceutical industry. And pharma's funding the entire thing. We've got to come together. We can't be splintered and siloed. We need to demand that treatment on demand is offered when anybody asks for it. It must be instantly on demand given. Why we don't allow our hospitals and demand our hospitals to open up detox beds in the rooms that they haven't filled in 2 years. And if I swallowed a cup of antifreeze, I thought it was Gatorade or something, and I drank poison, and I was rushed to the hospital, I would never be released from the hospital until my vitals were stable. I drank poison. But if I put that poison in my arm at my own volition through a needle, I'm a scumbag drug addict, and I'm not going to get treated. You know, last thing I just want to say, I'd like to speak, I'd like to share a lot of things, but I just don't want to take up too much time. This past September in Somerset County, New Jersey, we had a 17-year-old kid, the third football game of the year. His name was Evan Murray. He was 17 years old. He had mono. He didn't know he had mono. He was a star quarterback. He was the captain of the football team. All-American story, blonde hair, blue-eyed, 2 great parents dating the cheerleading captain. And he gets tackled in the football game. Well, his spleen ruptured, and he died at the hospital that night, 17 years old. What a tragedy. It was the front page of all our state papers. It was Fox discussed, CNN, Headline News, MSNBC discussed. The students in the town lobbied the Board of Education for a special meeting to rename the football field Evan Murray Field. Unanimously, they passed it. There was 6,000 people at the wake. The family didn't know 6,000 people. Thousands of people at the funeral. The kids got together for a GoFundMe page to start a fund to help the family with the funeral expenses, okay? And they raised over $100,000. It was discussed in every newspaper, every radio program in our state for a week until the young boy was buried. And I ask you tonight, If Evan Murray was found by his mother in his bedroom with a needle in his arm, I wonder if we would have had the same reaction. It's a hypothetical, rhetorical question. Of course we wouldn't have. And until in this country we start treating 17-year-old heroin addicts like 17-year-old spleen ruptures, until we start treating kids on the streets of Camden and Kensington and North Philly that want help, and we start treating them like an everyday citizen, a medical patient who's ingested poison, until we speak with one voice and come together collectively and collaboratively, until we start educating our kids about this problem, I'm telling you, it's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse. I refuse to accept that. I refuse to allow one more mother to get up and tell a story like she did. I refuse it. I'm going to work 7 days a week for the rest of my life, driving a stupid motorhome around this country until we come together. We can't be splintered and siloed anymore. We're losing an entire generation of people. Thank you. Are you coming to get me off the stage?